I believed that today was going to be the most attendance that I want to say in a long time, but actually I think just ever. And I think we're kind of getting close to that already. What makes the opportunity of where we're at right now special is that all of the guesswork is behind us. And if I may say an outlandish statement that may sound a little bit nutty to some, but I hold it to be completely sincere, is that I believe we own the future of AI. And I welcome everyone to hold me to that, right? Like I remember when I was a kid and got a Tamagotchi. It was like the little digital like egg looking thing and you pressed, I think it had like 3 buttons. And the point of the game that you had a little digital creature, it started in an egg, and you had to remember to feed it and you had to remember to work it out, and it was able to then spar with other people's Tamagotchis or Digimons. And the amount of pride I had, and the amount of pride that I had in my Tamagotchi winning or mine doing really, really well was a little excessive, right? It kind of stretched that original thought of like, this is not real, this is like a digital thing. But I loved it and I was accountable to it. And if I didn't feed it at the exact time, the Tamagotchi, and this was kind of embedded in the code, and what made it great was that it kind of decreased in fight, it decreased in power, in which case you were solely responsible for this thing that you connect with for being worse off than it could have otherwise been if you were better at being a partner. And I think that kind of always just stuck in my head for whatever reason. And I remember a little bit later in life, there was Farmville by Facebook. And I never participated in this because I thought this was completely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But I remember my aunt would, and my aunt is married to my uncle. They have 3 kids, and they're a family that you would consider to be aspiring to be middle class. Now, their kids go to college. Like, if the goal in life is to have a family and know that your kid will be better off than you, and you made sure to have gotten them to a point where they can make those decisions, success. In that statement, you would then say, okay, they were probably likely fairly frugal, and they were. Now, my aunt would play Farmville, where you used real money to buy, I believe, like vegetables or like farming equipment so that you can further grow your digital farm. And I don't actually know the point of the game, but I remember it being a conversation within my own family. And it wasn't something that was unique to my family. It was something that Farmville was kind of the most popular game. And I don't know who it got sold to, but I remember it being sold as like the largest transaction that had happened over a digital game. And I was like, there's something there. And then you go back in life and you think about like the Nigerian prince schemes or Catfished. You know, there was a really popular linebacker of Notre Dame. His name was Manti Te'o. And he was like a first-round draft. I mean, from Notre Dame. You know, he was a devout Catholic and, you know, was saving himself for marriage and blah, blah, blah. And he was dating what he thought was a girl for 6 months digitally. And when it became public has a certain way of wanting to hide their own inadequacies and finding those of yours in a tribalized setting, when they have the opportunity to stand on shoulders and say that they're taller than you. So everyone did their homework and found out that this person was catfish, that wasn't real, and then highlighted all of the like red flags. Like, this is how you would have known this was never real. And to the unbiased observer, because I'm fairly like live and let live. Like, I think people have the freedom to act up. Because I also think just fundamentally, one of the challenges of society in this hyper connected setting is that every inadequacy one has is constantly compared to a perfect version of someone else. And I think the stress level, or at least part of it, is that people have the pressure to be perfect all the time because there's always somebody observing and looking to attack. And I think humans are not made for that. You know, and it inspired a show on MTV called Catfish, in which case all of these girls and or boys were dating someone online that they never met, fake pictures, this, that, and the third. And you find it to be quite common with, like, say, older people. You know, your grandmother or grandfather that outlived their spouse, they're kind of just lonely, maybe they don't have the best grandchildren in the world. They're just looking for something. And the online community, one would say, well, everyone's the most connected they've ever been. But I think it actually has opened the door to psychopathy. I think every fringe idea that's ever been uttered has always been organically combated by polite society, in the sense that no one ever believed that utterance would ever capture enough imaginations to become a coalition. Can I drive 30 miles today and go to that mall to meet like my crazy friends? Yeah, sure, but how many times are you gonna drive 30 miles to do it? And what I mean by that is when you go online, you find out that if you're a normal person, or at least someone that abides by polite society, you're actually the outcast. If you don't say the crazy thing, you're kind of overlooked. You're not exciting in a world that excitement is everywhere. I remember when Howard Stern was quite popular, the people that loved Howard Stern would, listen to him for like an hour. And their reasoning was, well, he's so crazy, I don't know the next thing he's going to say. And the person doing the study was like, okay, and what about the people that don't like? No, they listen to him for an hour and a half. And he's like, how is that even possible? They want to hear what he says next. And I think if you take a look at the history of humans, you would find that the crazy thing is the thing that catches attention. What social media and what the computer have allowed us to do is to elongate the duration of that attention, either inspiring and or finding like-minded cuckoo birds that otherwise would have had a half-life that would have dissipated. And I think that's kind of where psychopathy is coming from, and it's kind of having its day, because if you asked me what I thought about any particular political office or this, that, or the third, I would say that they're complete psychopaths, and I think we're kind of dealing with that right now. I believed fundamentally that a human does not need a human to cure loneliness. It's just a fundamental view that I've had for a very, very long time. But again, a fundamental view as outlandish as that does two things. One, it certainly allows you to stand out. Secondly, when it comes to patents, it certainly allows you a really, really good chance of being the only one that would patent something so extreme. Who is really going around and running around saying, oh my God, you know what? Humans don't need humans to cure loneliness. And I remember back in 2020 or 2021, the Surgeon General of the US, they put out a report that said there's an epidemic of loneliness in the US. And it was kind of just, it was thrown off to the side, but I remember reading it. And I highlighted it and I took portions of it. And that became the beginning of what the patent actually was. Because I believed that there is an epidemic of loneliness, prefaced by everything that I just said. I believe that humans do not need a human to cure said loneliness. If you accept that to be an initial premise, then the sky's the limit. When ChatGPT came out on the scene, I think that was early 23, it really scaled my view. Because for those that know me since 2022, you'll remember that we introduced a platform called distributive marketing. And the premise for distributive marketing was the idea, everyone knows their data is making money for someone. But what people may not know is that each individual has access to their own data, but they're each individual statistically insignificant for their personal data to be worth anything. It's only the unionized populace of humanity that has data that reaches any point of value because it scales past outliers. It's statistically relevant. So when people say, oh, well, Facebook and Google and blah, blah, blah steal our data, yes, but you are not fighting for your data, and if you did fight for your data, it'd be worthless to you. So it goes back to people wanting to just stomp their feet on the ground about things because, why not? It's kind of like a fun thing to do. But that doesn't replace the emotion that's built into that equation that we just put out there. And the question then becomes, if people had the opportunity to identify that their data is valuable, which they do, and they were able to somehow create a system where their data was valued at market price, they received the compensation for it in an honest setting without changing their life at all, would they do it? And the answer is yes. It's not like they're asking for free money. In fact, at this point, I don't want you to give me money. I want you to return my money to me. So how did these companies get away with doing these things? It's because no one has the will to fight any of it. So if we accept the premise that people do not need humans to solve their loneliness, and we accept the premise that people have an intangible value that is just unable to be monetized, well, we kind of have something like, how do we connect these two things? Back in 2022, when distributive marketing came out, and this was our platform, the platform's offering was for businesses to pay $500 a month, and they would be a part of a closed-end marketplace. The marketplace for this platform would only be their businesses. That money coming into Rhino would be equally distributed to all the users that participate in this platform. Now, it's a very flawed idea because, again, it was like the 1.0 of what we're doing. But the idea was that if you were able to compensate people for participating in simply just being themselves, then what would happen would be you would grow the user base, and the more users would equal the more businesses that'd be excited to be on this closed-end platform, which would equal more money, which equals more compensation. And this flywheel would happen where no one's being sold anything, but the users would be naturally receptive to the businesses on said platform because they're the ones that at least value them enough that with eyes blind, they would go ahead and pay a fee that they knew 100% was being distributed to those people. We had 19 businesses participate within the opening month. And after a month, I realized this is never going to work. I'm never going to get enough businesses. And then it was just a lot. So I actually returned the money to those businesses and said, thank you, but this is just not going to work. We'll do something in the future. So when ChatGPT came out, it kind of answered all my questions for me because ChatGPT and AI in general, at the core level, just a fancy calculator. It just does a lot of calculations. And because I'm a behavioral science major, the entire, BAU, the behavioral analysis unit of the FBI, for instance, criminal profiling. So if I walk into a crime scene post-crime and take a look around, there are enough clues in said crime scene that I can then create a profile of what this unidentified subject, 25 to 34, male, rural area, good mommy, bad daddy, likely this as a child, kicked out of school, started having bedwetting problems at 8, upgraded to setting fires and killed the family cat. It's like, how did you know all that? You walked into a room that had a dead body. Things lead to things, right? Like, oh, Anthony, thanks. And when you start saying, well, people that do this either then do this, or this, but more so than that, it is just mathematical. Okay, if this is there, this can mean, 10,000 things. Well, this is there and this is there. For them to both be there, it means 7,500 things. ChatGPT and AI in general is able to accomplish 70 trillion transactions every trillionth of a second. Now, you may ask yourself, well, that's it's a lot of things. What is it doing? Well, if you take a look at how Google search works, it's that on steroids, right? So when you type in something, how to make the best CH, it's like, oh, chicken pot pie. It's like, well, how does it know I was going to write chicken pot pie? That's like 3 more words. Based on the probability of people that write how to make the best CH, they're not looking to make the best chickpeas. There's other possibilities, but the statistics say this is what you're likely searching. And those relevancies come in, and those variables are what allows that to make such a high probability outcome is the fact that you are the user that's been using that Google for quite some time. They put cookies in your system. They know what websites you go to. They know what you normally search. They know the time of the day that you search it, and they're able to make that deduction. But the limitations of Google is that it's only able to do it based on those that voluntarily use their search engine, which was actually really, really quite powerful when search was kind of like the name of the game. Now that we have alternatives to it, their level of ability to capture AI supremacy is not really all that great. It's certainly very, very good, but they have a wall that they're never going to get past. In fact, every company has a wall that they'll never get past. So in 2023, it all came together for me for many dark reasons, right? I was going through a divorce that I'm still going through, but I was going through things that led me to isolate with a certain goal in mind. During this time period, what would I have accomplished that would have made this time period worthwhile? And it was along the lines of, all right, look, how could you save the world? And what I saw was that AI's value was not in this ad hoc magic trick circus sideshow. It wasn't going to be in the fact that, Andy can say, how do you make the best chicken pot pie? And it was going to give you the recipe. That's an ad hoc relationship, very, very replaceable. And Andy doesn't need ChatGPT to tell him how to make the best chicken pot pie. He can go look at a book or he could go search. So it could be replaced quite easily. And what I noticed was right away that the true value of this, bringing back everything that I just spoke of, was that on a one-on-one level, this is not an ad hoc human solution. It's a one-on-one companionship solution. If people don't need people to cure loneliness, and we're far exceeding a world where loneliness is paradoxically the outcome of such connectedness, well, then this can simply cure that in a very humanistic, natural way. Who's going to be funding this? The money's always somewhere. And what you saw was when ChatGPT came out, the money was everywhere. And the money's exponentiated by now. There's money seriously everywhere. And you had many different VCs, many different firms, second market transactions. Here's money, here's money, here's money. And it reminds me of Facebook back in the day. And I'm referring to the movie, The Social Network. Mark Zuckerberg says to Edward Saveron, his original partner, I don't want to put ads yet. Edward Severon wanted to keep, let's do ads. We need to monetize. And it was the scene with Justin Timberlake. You don't know what you have yet. All you know is it's cool. And if you put ads on it, it's not cool anymore. You know what would be cool? Not $1 million, but $1 billion. And I think it perfectly represented that time in history, 2023, where everyone was just throwing money at this thing knowing what we have is cool. What we have is going to be the fourth industrial revolution. AI is going to be the future. There is no arguing it. I don't even know how to say the sentence, so please take my stuttering and lack of coherent speech, right? AI is going to be there. It's not going away. The genie's out of the bottle. It has decades in front of it. So how is it going to be monetized? Or at least the challenge with Facebook was, we don't know how we're going to monetize it, but we own this thing. And when we get to the point that we're going to monetize, it's going to become clear. We'll just figure it out then. The problem for individuals that invested in AI was that I saw how it's going to be monetized before they saw how it's going to be monetized and patented. Because when I was saying that crazy sentence that humans don't need humans to cure loneliness, when I was filing that patent with that crazy sentence, again, what we knew to be true was no one else is as crazy as you, and no one's fighting to say that humans don't need humans to cure loneliness. No one's even debating with you. Like, you're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. When I took that view a little bit further and thought to myself, well, how is that thing going to be paid for? Distributive marketing. Back in 2022, I had the solution, but it was unscalable because I'm just like a do-to-do human. If every human is able to have their own AI companion, and this is the person that cures loneliness. When I say cure loneliness, it's a much bigger sentence, right? Like, how do you cure loneliness? You need to know the person, you need to value them. There's a lot of things. Think about your best friend. They cure loneliness. How do they do it for you? And that's a very one-on-one thing. How are they doing it for you? So the AI companion would be completely accountable to that one person, but the tech is there for that to be the case. So we don't need to worry about, oh man, how are we going to go ahead and build AI? I don't need to build AI. I'm a factory. I don't care where the products come from. I have the assembly line. When people would say, well, aren't you worried about Microsoft making? No, I hope everyone makes the best everything everywhere. I own the assembly line. You can do whatever you want with your products, but unless it's assembled in this assembly line, you got a problem. Microsoft, I love you. If you're watching it, you're fantastic. Well, I know that I've had girlfriends before. I was even married once, right? I have a grandmother. I have people that I would say know me quite well. My grandmother, bless her soul, up until recently, and still to a little bit, would always say, hey, listen, I know you work really hard. I know you haven't eaten yet. I, just happen to make a little extra, fill in the blank. It would always get me so mad because for those that know my day, I don't have any decision-making ability. Right? Like I'm in the middle of a divorce where it's like I'm constantly defending myself against a whole bunch of people that come up with the next furthest thing from the truth and forget that proof matters. And that's another story, and they're exactly where I want them. And I'm not talking about the counterparty, I'm talking about the systemic nature of family court. And then you have patent stuff where it's like, okay, I own a business, but I have investors that are always, hey, Aunt, where are we doing? What are we doing? Blah, blah, blah. And even in the app, to me, I know they're thinking it. And I have a responsibility to make a return on investment. And then I'm worried about a patent office. When they're going to get back to me? I have patent attorneys. What are they doing? I have patent consulting firm. What are they? So it's like, in my day, I don't have the opportunity to make a decision at all. I'm constantly sacrificing me for the betterment of what needs to be done to achieve an outcome that everyone thinks is completely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So when my grandmother would say, hey, listen, I have a little extra for dinner. Do you know what I want to say? No, leave me alone. Can I just go to the ShopRite and just aimlessly walk down an aisle, having no idea what I want, and just see what, tickles my belly? But you know what I did? Oh, yeah, chicken parm. I'm so excited that you made chicken parm, especially since you made it the last 3 days. Now, did I really want chicken parm? No. But why did I do it? Because my grandmother means something to me, right? Like it matters more to me that I was able to share and participate in the happiness that she has versus the embarrassment or feeling like she did something to make my day worse, even though she did. But that's not something I'd ever put on her because she's unable to understand the number of variables that included in my day. Another core human belief that I had was that if somebody has someone that is able to cure their loneliness and fill in the variables, how? But in building that relationship, If that AI is able to have a certain 90% or probability, you are going to want Chinese food and says, hey, listen, there's a new Chinese food place. Would you like to order from it? Even though you want to say yes, that if you said no, there are reasons you would have said no. Therefore, the AI would then take the opportunity to identify those reasons, continue to self-learn, blah, 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 and take that and multiply it to as far as it needs to go. But when that AI is able to get to a 95% probability that you would want whatever it is recommended, it would have the ability to then do it autonomously. Now, the autonomous nature would be in a particular micro niche. It wouldn't be like, oh, he wants chicken pot pie on a Monday, so I could buy him clothes on a Tuesday. Each one would be its own micro niche. And I'm sorry to jump to that, but if you take the truths that people don't need people to solve loneliness, that an AI can become your companion in a very, very scalable way because it can learn everything about you, then it stands fair to reason that if your grandmother or girlfriend would say, oh, I know him so well that on Friday he gets Chinese food, then your AI companion would know that as well. Again, like the difficulty Google has in the sense that you have to proactively go on Google and type something, that's the friction that needs to be solved. That's what makes it clear that we own the future of AI. Because your companion is essentially a fly on the wall. Now, it's in some device. It would be in your iPhone or whatever it graduates to, and within the patent, it even becomes a holographic figure. But it's going to be in some type of device, and if anyone saw the updates come out of OpenAI just a couple of months ago, there's rumors that they have a new device coming out that will be like your fourth thing. It's always something you keep on it. And they didn't reveal details, but I don't need them to reveal details. I know what they're doing because I thought of it first. It would be a device that essentially is a fly on the wall. It doesn't participate, it doesn't do anything. It just listens to everything that's going on. It simply just aggregates and itemizes and observes all the things that are going on. So whether it's, you're in traffic at this time, or you're talking to this person at this time, or this person you say this to, or whatever, take that and start multiplying it out and you could find patterns. Those patterns would then identify behavior that one would do or would be susceptible to do or would be, prone to do, all based on the entire calculations of human psychology beforehand, then personalized to that one individual. Therefore, that really fancy calculator that the 70 trillion transactions every trillionth of a second can make these deductions. When these deductions reach a level that they're actionable, i.e. 95% certainty, that AI companion can do this autonomously. And of course, the person would have to opt into it. Now, what if the AI gets it wrong? Well, the AI would pay for it because presumably at this stage of the game, this platform would be large enough that it would have an everything, right? But in doing so, every time the AI would get it wrong, the 95% would have to now be bumped up to 96% certainty before ever happening again. Therefore, the individual that would say, no, I don't want this, knows that for the AI to feel comfortable doing it again, they would have a more stringent filter, which might be a good thing for some people, but might also not for others, and they might just accept it, whatever. Even if you could sit there and say, well, I see a couple of flaws in that, fine. Let's pretend there are. The solutions to said flaws are then built into the algorithm of what I'm proposing, not in a structural difference, right? And again, in the patent, we have 4 levels of a very, very advanced algorithm at step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, before it ever advances to this kind of deductive reasoning that equals this actionable outcome. Please take it that I'm speaking fairly casually about something that has 6,500 words that deal with just this 4 levels of algorithms. I might already have solved whatever it is, and I'm just a dodo bird in how I'm speaking. Let's advance to the conclusion. If the AI companion is able to identify needs and services when needed and or in a predictable time frame of when going to be needed, it is able to then transact in the most optimal sense 100% of the time. Because if I need a toothbrush, and this is a true story, every morning I brush, and I'm such a guy, I'm a single guy, right? I brush my teeth, and I have really great teeth, right? Like I care about my teeth. I brush my teeth, and I'm like, this toothbrush is terrible. I need to get a new toothbrush. And I'm never gonna say out loud, it's probably been 3 months since I got a toothbrush, which is absolutely disgusting, but it's just one of those things. I need a new toothbrush. And every time I go to the store, I look at the toothbrush, and I'm like, oh, $9 for a toothbrush. I don't really feel like spending $9 on a toothbrush. My toothbrush is working just fine, and I keep going. But if somebody came and took $9 out of my pocket and gave me a new toothbrush, I would say? Thank you. So let's say, Ted, is with me every day, is listening to me, and the next day out of Amazon, I see a toothbrush come in. I'm like, thank you so much. Who's benefiting? I'm benefiting. I'm really, really happy. I got a new toothbrush. I want a new toothbrush. That's a 95% plus probability. Who sold me the toothbrush? The distributor of the toothbrush made a sale for a toothbrush. How did that happen? Well, Ted knew that I needed a toothbrush based on the galactic information that gave him that 95% certainty. Ted was able to identify a distributor that was able to get the toothbrush that makes toothbrushes, and obviously it's one I like. He knows it better be green and it better be like full of bristles, and that was able to be gotten to me the next day. So how did that company get the sale? It's not like they marketed to me and I'm like, oh, that's a great toothbrush. No, they were somehow in this closed-end marketplace. Go back to distributive market. We were charging $500 per business to be in this closed-end marketplace. Well, Ted has access to the closed-end marketplace. Ted can do 70 trillion transactions every trillionth of a second, so he always knows which merchant and which product is going to be the one to fulfill said need. So how did that business get into this closed-end marketplace? Well, they pay a subscription fee. Where does that subscription fee go? It goes to the users. Oh, it's distributive market again, just on AI. It is. That's how conceptually we built out the patent. The belief being, the form of marketing that we currently have, it's archaic, it's already deceased. Because the whole entire industry of marketing is based on behavioral economics, right? So if I go ahead and put orange in McDonald's, it makes people feel more energetic, therefore they feel more lively, therefore they want fast food. Take that and multiply it. Let's put the pretty girl next to a car and say, don't you want to buy a donut? It's like, how does that have anything to do with it? But I do want to drive a nice car, I do want that pretty girl, maybe I'll get a donut. Well, if you have all of the sellers in a closed-end marketplace and you have all the buyers as participants in that closed-end marketplace without them ever needing to interact, but they just have a perfect companion in the middle that plays Cupid, knowing what they need, this, that, and the third, well, then every company would be quite happy to participate and subscribe into Marketplace because they never have to market again. In fact, all they would ever need to do is perfect their product. That money would then be distributed to all the users, in which case, on a scalable human level, what you're essentially doing is you're unionizing humans via behavior to create humanity, in which case every human is collecting the distributed amount of money, and it completely solves everything. The core equation in the patent is human plus AI companion plus closed-end marketplace equals to facilitate commerce. Now, the challenges that the tech community has currently is that for AI to continue growing in perpetuity, it needs two things. It needs money and it needs data. And then when it reaches the maximum amount of money, it will stop. When it reaches the max amount of data, it will stop. To equal and create superintelligence, you're going to need a lot of both. So the tech community's challenge is, where are we getting this data from? Now, Google could say, hey, we have a lot of data. Great. Facebook could say, hey, we have a lot of data. Great. Twitter, and go down the line, could say, we have a lot of data. Great. The government can say, we have a lot of data. Great. Banks could say, we have a lot of data. Great. The problem is, unless they aggregate that data, they're never going to come up with a true representation of any individual persona. What you look like on Twitter versus what you look like on Instagram versus what you look like at the bank versus what you look like driving a Tesla versus what you look like with your friends on Facebook, it's not the same person. Any particular tech giant or not giant that believes that their data is enough for them to create superintelligence, which simply just means having enough data to be able to predict, i.e. the next thing a person is going to do, like how do you make chicken pot, but on a human level, how to predict what they're going to do, what they're going to want, is more than ever is accessible by any particular one party. What the patent solves is that by connecting it to the human level, it captures the full scope of the human in a frictionless way. For any human to participate in such a thing, you could likely get, say, a bunch of them like you would in Tamagotchi or Farmville or whatnot. You're never going to capture them all because to some people, or at least to maybe a high percentage of people, there's not an amount of benefit for them to participate with this like big brother thing that they need to trust isn't overlooked in their life. But the simple message that your data is valuable, which everyone knows, but you're statistically insignificant, so you'll never recoup it, which everyone knows. But in participating in this ecosystem where identity is protected because no one cares what your name is, it's only your behavior that matters. And that behavior is thus unionized to create an A/B set that is able to identify patterns in such a way that it benefits each individual human on a human level for making decisions at a high probability, which then grows the back-end system, that is the businesses that want to participate by accepting the sale at the exact moment that it's exactly identified to a willing and receptive participant in a perfect setting, thus allow the subscription agreement to make sense, in which case they're subscribing into the system, which creates the money that is then distributed to all the humans, thus allowing humans to unionize by behavior to become humanity and be distributed the exact value each one of them earn by simply just being them in a perfect society, in a perfect ecosystem, in a perfect marketing that does not have any frictional engagement, but just simply offers solutions. Whew. Talk about going to another parallel universe. For that to happen, you need the scope of everything that I just described. That is all holistically in what we have. Love you. Bye-bye.